It's 7 minutes away at light speed.
Really?
Yeah. So light speed's 186,000 miles a second, and it takes 7 minutes to get to the sun.
Jesus Christ.
So
So
if the sun explodes, you won't know for 7 minutes. Pretty cool.
My next guest is a securities attorney from San Diego, California, who currently lives in Austin, Texas. However, in Josh's words, my job is the least interesting thing about me. So, more interestingly, Josh is a husband and brother, an avid learner, reader, researcher, and amateur historian. On this episode, for your education and entertainment, growing up in the Mormon Church, ancient species of humans, the ever-expanding universe, and the race to the atom bomb. Ladies and gentlemen, Joshua Dunford.
Are we live? Is this recording?
So obviously for my listeners, my tiny little audience that I have
Yes.
of like 40 people who I love, but a lot of them are ex-Mormon, mostly just because this got posted to my page and your page and Jacob's page.
Yeah, there's a theme
the first
here.
one. And we were all raised that way. For my viewers, if you haven't noticed, Josh and I look the same and have the same face, same tone of voice, same last name. That's
Yes.
because he is my brother.
I can't grow a mustache. So that's exclusive to Ben.
But nevertheless, even though we were raised in the same family by the same people in the same towns, you still have a very different experience regardless. So what I wanted to, how I kind of wanted to start this was like, what was your experience like being the oldest, growing up in Mormonism in San Diego, in California? What of that do you want to talk about, or do you find interesting to talk about?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, growing up the oldest, even right there, there's kind of some weirdness because, Aaron is our half brother.
That's yes.
He's
also,
older,
yeah,
but he wasn't always around, so I was kind of quasi the oldest.
Quasi-oldest,
I was the
yeah.
oldest present sibling.
That's true.
Aaron was in and out, but of mom's kids, I'm the oldest. So I think when you're the oldest, and maybe older, oldest siblings will identify with this, but what's the joke is that, first through the wall is always the bloodiest. So, like I couldn't get an airsoft gun until I was 12. You got one for your 6th birthday.
I do remember this. Yes.
Yeah. And, like I wanted to buy a paintball gun. And when we lived in Santee,
I remember
the pump
this.
action
The
paintball
pump
gun.
one. Yeah.
And
With Wesley and Matt.
yeah, because we were going to shoot each other in the woods behind the Collins'
Yeah.
house. And Dad said if I wanted to have a paintball gun, he had to shoot me with it to like teach me not to just fucking shoot everybody. Are we allowed to swear?
Yes, very
Okay.
much so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I'm not going to let you shoot me unless I get to shoot you
I actually have like a memory
at the
of
Via
this.
Francis house.
Yes.
And it was like dusk.
In the backyard.
And I shot him. And then it was my turn and I freaked out. So that kind of sums up being the oldest, I think. It's weird when you become an adult and you start seeing your parents as peers and not as parents. You realize that they have no clue what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
So, when I look back at that, even the paintball experience, Mom was what, like in her 30s?
Jesus.
And
yeah.
I'm 30. So that's weird. So she's just making shit up, you know?
That's true.
And I think as you parent, I assume I have no children, you probably get better at it as you go.
Just like you do with most things.
Yeah, so maybe that's why Sam's the least fucked up. He came last.
Perfect segue into why you're fucked up.
Oh my God, so many reasons. Actually, it's not that bad. We like to joke, but I mean, obviously there's the Mormonism thing, and most everybody knows that we don't do that anymore, and certainly everybody who listens to this knows that we don't do that anymore. But
yeah. Potentially first time that you've kind of talked about that publicly.
Certainly on the record, but this
On the
is also
record.
the first
I mean,
time I've
all
really
the-
talked about anything publicly.
That's yeah, I guess publicly is relative, but I guess like people, some people when they leave religion or make a big life move or change something like that, so they're all over Facebook about it and all that kind of shit. So like everybody like knows.
Yeah, and it's like there's
not
this,
really your thing.
No, there's this like it's not an expectation, but I think part of getting out of Mormonism is kind of making it okay for yourself, and for a lot of people that requires this. It's almost like a coming out story. Like you kind of have to come out as ex-Mormon.
Yeah.
Not, of course, to discredit the experience of actually coming out. That's like 1,000 times more complex. Yeah. But
yeah, I wonder why that. Like, why do people feel the need to do that?
Well, I think it's so much of your social circle. I mean, look back to growing up Mormon is built around Mormonism. Who your friends are, who you date, who you interact with at school. That's all kind of dictated by Mormonism.
All of it.
So when you decide you don't want to do that anymore, you really have to start from zero and kind of rebuild. So I think you feel this pressure to kind of announce to your existing social circle that you're no longer in the in-group because there are assumptions about being in the in-group.
Yeah. Which is an incredibly daunting thing to do because there's the possibility that you lose everyone.
Yeah, I think
most people. At least.
I think that's becoming less and less true.
I was just about to say the same thing.
Yeah, like Dad got pretty fucked by the whole thing.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
not as bad. I mean, there were people who were judgmental of me, like always, but there are people who are judgmental of me now. So
yeah. I feel like for me, like at least in comparison to maybe how much Dad lost, I lost a lot less.
Yeah,
I mean, some of it's just my generation. Our generation.
Yeah,
in a
I
way.
think millennials are just kind of disinterested.
I have lots of, Mormon buddies that are still active members of the church, and it's not a thing for us.
Yeah.
We just get along, and we can conversate and hang out and still be friends, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, so I struggle with that a little. I don't know why. I don't know. Some of it, it's hard for me to kind of overlook some of the differences, I think. And some of it, I think, from a morality standpoint, I'm just unwilling to accept. I think there are things about it that are actively hurting people. So it's hard for me to overlook some of that. And some, you can choose to affiliate with whatever you want to affiliate with. And if you choose that for whatever reason, that's fine, but and I probably will have an opinion about it, and I'm probably not going to share it. I have an opinion about everything, but yeah, I don't know. I think we joke all the time that coming out of Mormonism, you have like an angry phase, and mine was like 5 years, where just everything about it just pissed me off. Like right when I think it was just so much hurt, because you start having this very what's the word I'm looking for? You have a very set worldview.
Yeah.
And you know everything that happened before you were born, and you know everything you're supposed to do while you're alive, and you know everything that happens after you die.
Yeah.
And it's all set in stone.
Yeah.
You marry a Mormon girl. You have 82 kids.
Yeah.
You raise them as Mormons.
You know what's the craziest part about that is they have a name for it, and it's literally called the Plan of Happiness, which I think is the most hilarious thing I have ever heard.
It's too expensive.
I'm like, why didn't I think of that at the time as being like, you know what, this sounds too good to be true.
Well, because you don't know.
The Plan of Happiness?
It's
really?
Yeah. Like, I got...
just things you notice in hindsight. But,
well, I got glasses when I was like 13, 14. And when I went to the optometrist for the first time to like have them correct my vision, and when she flips down all the things and I realized, I couldn't see. Like I didn't
the whole time.
I was like, I thought the board was blurry from the back row. I thought that's how it was.
Interesting.
But once you have glasses, you're like, oh, okay.
Great
this
metaphor.
Is how it's supposed to be. Because when you're on the inside looking out, everybody else is crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
you're the
it's
one.
Taught, it's preached that way.
You're the one. You've got all the information. You've got all the knowledge. It's very finite. It's sure.
Yeah.
And then when you get on the outside, you realize, it wasn't what I thought it was. And when I figured that out, I was going to school at BYU, Idaho. And I'd just gotten married. I was already kind of waffling because Jake had come out.
Okay.
And
yeah,
immediately a social pariah for that. And that bothered me.
So we have another one of our brothers, Jacob. For those who don't know, Jacob is the brother in between Josh and I. Came out as gay.
It would have been 2014.
Something like it was right before this part of the story.
Yeah, right before. I got married in 2015 in March.
We'll have Jacob on the podcast at some point and tell that part of the story. But
so Jake had come out, and it bothered me that it bothered him, and that there was all those kind of social problems. And I came home early from my mission for health reasons, 6 months early. I served a full sister mission. And I caught a lot of social flack for that at school. I always used to joke before I went on my mission that the most awkward birthday you can have at BYU is your 21st birthday, because you're supposed to be on your mission.
Oh, shit.
And I celebrated my 21st birthday in Katie's kitchen at BYU, Idaho.
Who came?
I don't know. Katie made me a cake. She bought me a Hoonigan shirt, which I had until like recently. Before we moved, I threw it out because it was like,
I remember,
beat to hell.
I know what you're talking about. I didn't even think about that. That would be like something that you wouldn't want to like say publicly, like I'm having my 21st birthday.
Well, that's just one of the weird parts of Mormonism is there's like things that are socially unacceptable that are completely benign in the real world where people live.
Yeah.
But when you put it through this sort of filter, it becomes a weird thing. Like if you wear a shirt that's too short, like if you can't see a garment line or something like that, this is like people have questions about that. It's weird things. Or if you're seen like at the wrong restaurant with the wrong people, or it just raises little social flags. So coming home early from your mission, another one.
Ooh, big no.
Yeah, lots of questions. People were skeptical of me. People were judgmental of me.
Do you feel like part of your process of leaving started when you came home from your mission early?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because there was fallout.
And you were like, what the fuck?
Yeah, not to mention the fact that I was miserable for the whole mission because it was terrifying. It was just so scary.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. So you spent 18 months
Uh-huh.
in central Lima, Peru.
Yeah, so I was in the Peru-Lima Central mission. It's geographically a tiny mission. Like it's just the central part of the city. So imagine like a mission that was like just downtown Austin.
That's it.
And like some of the kind of immediately surrounding neighborhoods. And then that's it. So like one of my second area was like 2 blocks wide and like 20 blocks tall. And that's it. It was
Jesus.
And because they had divvied it up so small. But it was just scary. I mean, the mission part of the mission was fine. It's not the most exciting thing in the world.
Yeah, I wonder, like, of the 18 months you spent there, the things that are lasting for you, like, is it being there, or was it the reason that you were there?
I think that I still have
potentially.
Well, I think that I think being there as a Mormon missionary compounded the kind of inherent issues with living in dangerous inner city neighborhoods in a developing country. Because it's not that way anymore. They've kind of changed how missions work, but it was just extremely isolating. I mean, my first area was a neighborhood just south of, I think it's the Jorge Chavez Airport. Poor and dangerous. Like people would stop me all the time on the street. Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, because you're just
you
like
are not
this
supposed to be here.
6'4", 150-pound white dude.
Yeah.
From Southern California.
Yeah, who in that neighborhood didn't speak Spanish.
19 years old, doesn't speak Spanish, wearing clean cut shirt and tie.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that because they're like somebody's going to rob you?
Oh
Or
yeah, people would say that all the time.
Or like you're gonna get killed? Or like what's the danger?
I think street crime.
So all the above.
Yeah, I mean, the chances I think you get murdered are pretty small. I think that's just generally true. Could happen, but unlikely. But I got robbed a bunch of times. It just...
What was that like?
It was scary at first.
Robbed, but
well, I think, once you kind of understand... Well, neither had I. I mean, people who live like us in the United States, kind of suburbs people... Like, you don't get robbed in the H-E-B parking lot, usually.
Yeah, very, very unlikely.
No, but it's more of a thing down there. I always think that, most of the crime in the United States is, and this is not wholly true, but a lot of the crime is kind of behind closed doors crime. So it's not on the street. There is street crime, but rampant street crime in inner city neighborhoods in Lima. Robberies, murders, not of missionaries, but of other people. I mean, it's around.
Yeah.
So first time...
Group versus group murders, I would assume.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of these neighborhoods, I didn't really ever get into the details of it, but it was gang territory. So I don't know.
Interesting. So what stuck with you from the mission?
God. I still have these. I have a couple of kind of recurring dreams, which is probably like a PTSD thing. I should see somebody for that.
Potentially.
But the most common one is it's kind of variations of a dream, and it's changed a little as he's gotten older. But I used to have a dream that I was in Peru, and Sam was there, and I couldn't find him.
Oh God!
Like he was lost in my neighborhood somewhere. And I was looking for him, and I was just like panicked about it.
Yeah.
Had that dream all the time.
For those who don't know, Sam is another brother of ours. He is the youngest of our family.
Yeah,
right now, he's 19.
Yeah.
But at the time when you started having these dreams, he would have been...
I mean, when I got home, I think he was 8.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So in your dreams, you had lost your 9-year-old brother.
Yeah, and I can't find him. I'm looking for him.
In Lima. Okay.
Some kind of getting robbed dreams. Even when I got home, I was still scared of like groups of adult men on the street. Like in Rexburg, I would see like 5 guys like walking down the street, and I would cross the street and walk on the other side because I was just I'd had so many negative interactions of walking kind of unknowingly into groups of men that I just was like programmed against it.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so that was cool. So I think those are the kind of the ones that stick with me, but a lot of tension, I think, around that still for me, which is weird. The mission part of my mission, other than the kind of scary parts, was boring. I mean, the 2 folks who ran the mission, Alan Borg and his wife, who actually just passed away like 2 months ago.
Oh, shit.
Nice people. He's an air traffic controller in Salt Lake. Doesn't know how to run a business. But really, I think genuinely good people. Like I remember I went and confessed to him once on my mission that I'd been masturbating, and he was like, okay. And I was like, wow, that is...
Really? So what did he say?
He said, go back to work.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, okay.
Wow.
That just did not go the way I thought it would.
Yeah. I keep talking to different people about this same or similar topic, right? A lot of my friends, buddies, siblings, growing up in the Mormon church, the whole masturbation porn thing. But like everybody I never had the balls to tell anyone.
Oh, I confessed like a billion times.
So I confessed to Dad one time, and that went okay.
Yeah.
But I never told. I lied through my teeth to every church leader ever, which is a big part of a lot of my issues that I have dealt with now as an adult, because I lied and it worked.
It's a really easy lie.
And I got really good at it.
It's impossible to prove that you're lying.
But in talking to some buddies and some other people and asking a similar, I keep getting varying reviews from different church leaders having completely different responses.
Well, they call
to
it
the
like
same information.
They call it, what do they call it? Like, they call it bishopric roulette or leadership roulette or something like that. Like, even at BYU Idaho, you had to be really careful about what you confessed and to who, because they could kick you out of school. And that happened to my friend David. He got kicked out of school for confessing, I won't say what because it's his business, but minor bullshit.
Yeah.
I went and tried to plead his case to the bishop.
Really?
Yeah, and it didn't work. Maybe that's my first lawyering experience.
And it didn't work.
No, I lost my first case for David.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard so many people having very varying reviews on bishops or leaders, saying basically go back to work like your mission president did.
Yeah.
Or all the way to, some terrible things.
Well, I mean, it just depends because your bishop he's like an accountant or something.
He's just an guy.
He's an dude who, whatever his personal views are necessarily going to be involved in how he,
because there is
lords over you.
Yeah, there is an outline for the bishops.
There's a handbook. There's a secret handbook which you can get all over the internet
on how they're supposed to respond to these things.
Yeah,
and I feel like they never follow it.
I don't know.
It's just kind of whatever they come up with in the moment.
Well, I just doubt that they read it because
they're busy. They're dudes.
They have jobs and 18 kids.
Well, it's like, when have you ever read the instructions for anything?
Well, I do now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But don't put it past an average guy to not read the instructions and just fucking send it.
Yeah, until it goes bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that's true. You get the roulette of kind of leadership, but my mission president was cool. Nice guy. When I got sick, he didn't overly pressure me to stay and get surgery in South America. Thank God.
That would have been a terrible idea.
Which I didn't end up needing. I think, I was thinking about this because I was having all that pain, and because of where it was located, I was really worried about it. I think I was also just anxious because I'd been having kind of back-to-back traumatic experiences for a year and a half.
Yes.
So that might have had something to do with it.
I'm sure that had something to do with it.
But I'm having all this pain, and I see the doctor there. We still rolling?
All right, we're rolling again. I don't know how much of that we're going to miss on your camera. I'm shirking in my duties. It's going to be fine, though.
It's a zero budget operation.
We're doing our best.
You need one of those guys like the big podcasters have that sit on the side and look shit up.
What's he in Joe Rogan? Jamie, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, Jamie, could you look that up for us?
Look that up. Theo Vaughn has one too.
Does he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So without getting, I guess, spending too much time on it, I want to know, so we talked about one of the reasons you left the church in the first place, initially, was one, the fallout of coming home early from your mission.
Well, that's kind of that's what opened the door. That was like the first, people say, you have your shelf that breaks. It was kind of the first thing that went on my shelf.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Jacob came out.
Shelf item number 2.
Yeah. You're at BYU. You're married to your wife, Katie.
Yes.
BYU Idaho.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure there were many other things that got placed on the shelf at that point. But what were the big ones? What was the thing that broke the...
Oh, John DeLynn. This is all John DeLynne's fault. Shout out to John DeLynne.
So, are there any specifics?
Yeah, so here's why. So, for people who aren't familiar, John DeLynne has been doing for 1,000 years a podcast called Mormon Stories. And at the kind of beginning of his podcasting career, he was a practicing LDS guy who had guests on to talk about experiences in Mormonism, kind of questions around historicity and, anachronisms in the Book of Mormon, these kinds of things. He got excommunicated a handful of years ago because he's bad for business. And I haven't listened to his podcast since 2017, probably. As I just don't care anymore. 2018, maybe. Every once in a while, I'll peek in and see what's going on. But I genuinely don't think about the Mormon Church that often unless somebody brings it up. But what happened was, so now we've come full circle. Mm-hmm. We're really kind of just ADD talking here. We're back. I'm working at the BYU Idaho over the summer in the Sporey building in the film department. So they have a studio down there where they do interviews and there's classes on broadcasting and stuff. So we're cleaning and reorganizing the whole studio. So I'm working, 6 hours a day and just consuming John DeLynne through my phone the whole day.
Oh.
And for me, and I guess everybody's kind of experience is different, but for me, what was important about Mormonism is that it was true. Mm. What I mean by that is that Mormonism makes claims that are provable, so they say, or disprovable. Joseph Smith saw God in Jesus. This happened.
Yes.
There were gold plates.
This is the claim.
Yeah, there are. It's not just it's not just kind of your rank and file Christianity. There are truth claims that are made.
Yeah.
And as soon as I found out that there were problems with the truth claims, being generous problems, I was done. That was it. Because if it's not true, then I don't want to do it.
That seems reasonable to me.
Because I think it had just hurt me so bad. I mean, I genuinely thought as a teenager I was a bad person.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, me too.
Even though I was just a 15-year-old kid doing 15-year-old kid shit.
Yeah.
And then I realized, I was like, oh my God, it's all fake. Who cares? Proceed with life as normal. Thank you very much.
And that just opens up a whole fucking can of worms of trying to figure out what life looks like post-Mormonism.
Well, then you got to decide everything.
It takes forever.
Do I live after I die? I don't know. Those are questions you have to ask yourself.
Yeah.
If you care. I guess you could not care, live your dream. But you have to sort of restart. You're 20 or whatever I was at the time, 22. My entire foundation for how I approach life has been taken away because, I find out there's a whole bunch of versions of the first vision. I'm a facts guy.
Yeah.
This does not lend itself to making it true.
Yeah.
I feel like if God and Jesus appeared to me, I would remember the details of that pretty clearly.
Probably.
And there wouldn't be wildly different versions of the story. Many
different versions.
Sometimes I'm 14, sometimes I'm 16. Sometimes it's God and Jesus.
Yeah. If what was that? There's a name for this thing that you were telling me about the other day, where the most likely thing is the truth, or what was it? The
Occam's razor.
That.
Yeah, I'm an idiot, so take this with an idiot grain of salt. Occam's razor, I think, is that the simplest explanation is probably
the right one.
Yeah. So what's more likely?
What's more likely, that he misremembered God and Jesus appearing to him?
No, just even simpler than that. What's more likely? God and Jesus appeared to a 14-year-old kid in 1820 in upstate New York, or he made it up? He made it up.
Yeah.
He might have been well-intentioned,
Sure.
but, you know,
What's more likely?
he made it up.
Yeah.
What were his reasons? I don't know. At this point, I also don't care.
Yeah. Neither do I.
It doesn't matter to
Yeah.
me.
We don't really need to guess. If you want details on history problems with the Mormon Church,
John DeLynn has covered it.
go hit up John DeLynn and Mormon Stories.
There's
we don't need to cover that here.
500 million hours of John DeLynn podcast.
So what I am more interested in, though, and what I think what my audience and the goal of what I'm doing here is much more interested in, is what happens after that, right? So you leave Mormonism.
Yeah.
It blows your world wide open.
Oh, yeah. I had like a complete crisis at Grandpa Smith's funeral.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, because he died right around this time.
2016, I think.
Maybe.
Because I was living in Utah.
Yeah, it was
when he
2016. It was before I moved to Arizona in 2017. So it was in this time frame.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't know. Like, what happens when you die?
Mm.
So it was scary for me.
Yeah.
Like, a person I knew is dead. What does that mean? I don't know.
I think this is a very important piece of the story that I think is going to be important to the listeners and is important to the reason that we're doing this podcast, because I think a lot of people are going to feel exactly that way.
Yeah. I mean,
at some point.
Well, you have to ask yourself the question, because and let me preface by saying, if you want to believe in the plan of salvation and do that whole song and dance, more power to you. Don't tell me to do it. I don't want to. Live your dream. I didn't want to do that, so I had to come up with a new paradigm. And unfortunately, I had not decided on a paradigm before Grandpa Smith died in surgery. So, whole funeral was a shit show for me, because it just scared me up and down.
I remember you cried a lot.
Yeah, not because I was sad, but because I was freaking out.
And I'm like a sympathetic crier.
Yeah.
So like I'd be good and I'd look over and you'd be sobbing and then I would just become a mess.
Yeah, I was really having a real internal kind of crisis.
Interesting.
Over.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense though.
Just like an existential crisis. I'm 22. I just got married. I'm attending a college for a religion that I no longer believe in. And my grandpa has died and I don't know what that means. So I feel like by the time you're in your 20s, you should have an idea. At least that's how I felt I should feel.
Yeah.
And
Shocker.
Have a handle on these things. I did not.
Yeah.
So from there, I kind of had to figure out, like, okay, what is my belief system, or my lack of belief system, I guess now.
Yeah.
And I would say, and this is not uncommon for ex-Mormons, I'm probably mostly atheist. I'm a hopeful atheist.
Okay.
The joke is, atheism is a lose-lose proposition, because if you're wrong, you'll hear about it for all eternity. And if you're right, nobody will ever know.
Who is the author that wrote The God Delusion?
Is that book I just read?
I'm trying to remember. It's not Hitchens. It's the other one.
Dawkins?
Dawkins.
Yeah, he's the god of atheists.
Yeah, he's up there. So let me see here. Yeah, so Richard Dawkins, he's a PhD, as a doctor of fucking
I don't know what
evolutionary biology, I want to say. Something like that. I think
you know more than me.
So, but he has, I'm going to look it up. So Dawkins has a 1 to 7 scale on atheism. Have you seen this?
No.
Yeah. So
See, it goes to show how little I actually know.
Dawkins
atheism scale.
Yeah, just look that up. It's a 1 to 7. I'll put it on the screen so people can see it.
Oh, I see. So
where do you fall?
Oh, okay. So 1 is you believe in God. 1 is you know God exists. 7 is you know He does not.
Yeah. I guess it's on the screen so people can see.
Yeah,
what it
I'm
is.
probably. I mean, Richard Dawkins, I think, is sure of himself to a fault.
That's interesting that you say that. What number do you think Richard Dawkins is?
Probably like a 6 leaning 7.
He's 6. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably like a 5. And here's why.
So I'm going to just read that for people who aren't watching but are listening. 5 being weak atheist. I do not know whether God exists, but I am inclined to be skeptical. 6 being de facto atheist. I cannot know for certain, but I think God is very improbable.
Okay, so I'm probably a 6 then. With that explanation, I guess I'm, what did I just say about Richard Dawkins? That he's self-confident to a fault? So am I guess.
And 7 being strong atheist. I am 100% sure that there is no God.
No, I think it is, if you say you're 100% sure of anything, I take issue with this.
Yeah.
So I'm a 6, and I'm a hopeful 6, and here's why. I'm a facts guy.
Yeah.
When it comes to this kind of thing, like, you better show it to me. If I'm going to give you 10% of my income for life, I need to see the receipts. The idea of God and afterlife is appealing.
Of course.
But I'm not going to bet on it. Because I think if you bet on it, a bunch of important stuff that you should be doing, you're not going to do. And it's one of the reasons I live in Texas is when I decided that when I die, that's it. And just like I have no memory of not being born, I will have no memory of being dead.
Correct.
It's not that I am dead. It's that I am just not.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't before.
Right.
And the idea of that used to really scare me.
Yeah. Me
Like
too.
I would be conscious of not being. But you're not. You're gone.
I won't care.
No, I'll be dead.
I'll be dead.
I know. And I sometimes at work, I'll see people's like really complicated wills and trusts and stuff. And part of me is like, I don't really care what you do with my stuff. I'm dead. It's just stuff. And I'm dead.
Interesting.
But to not stray, when I decided that I probably won't live after I die, and neither will my parents, I should probably see them while they're alive.
Yeah.
Because if I say, and I think a lot of people do this, and especially in Mormonism, we delay our happiness until the next life.
Or just the next thing, but very much so the next life.
We're supposed to struggle through this life and
live for the next one.
And fulfill God's plan, yada, yada, yada. I can't even remember the terms anymore. That's how out of it I am. So I think a lot of people are kind of living, they're just getting through their life. And that's not exclusive to Mormons. I think a lot of people do that. But I think Mormonism specifically, because that's the frame of reference I'm familiar with, people might put off, spending time with their parents because they're going to live together forever. And I don't know that.
Can't guarantee that.
So I'll see Dad now while he's alive.
Yeah.
Because I know I can do that. So I can control that.
Interesting.
And if he dies and then I die and that's it, well, I'll have done what I could do. And if I die and there's
part 2,
great. I was wrong. And I'd be happy to be wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to bet on it.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to end up leaving a lot of important shit behind. Stuff that I would have done had I known.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd had a conversation with a buddy of mine, probably a couple of years ago now, who's active LDS guy. And we were driving for a few hours inside of Utah from St. George to back home. And we just started having this conversation, started getting into some deeper stuff, And at some point he asked me, he was like, so, like, do you believe in God or afterlife or something like that? So I can't remember exactly his exact question. But I was like, well, probably not. No.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not, right? And he goes, he was like, that's so sad.
No, it's great.
And I said, I used to think so.
Yeah.
It used to make me sad. But then I decided that I was going to live for this life instead of trying to live for the next one.
Yeah, this life is precious.
And I saw this little light in his eye where he was like, oh my God, nobody's ever said it to me like that before.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I'm not going to live for the next one. I'm just going to live for this life. I'm just going to be happy now. I'm going to be happy today this week,
Yeah.
which I still suck at, by the way.
Well,
I
I
still
mean-
get depressed. I still have bad days, bad weeks, bad months.
Well, you still got to go to work and
Yeah.
shit. Like, it's not always fun being alive.
Yeah. but yeah, very similar to what you were saying.
Yeah, and I think, even take it a step further, like one of the things I was kind of coping with when I was trying to build a kind of a framework to base my life around was I started listening to like science podcasts and like I was like, I need new information from other sources because most of the sources I've trusted on important topics up to this point failed me pretty miserably.
Yeah.
And I listened to this podcast. It was kind of like it was a podcast for people who were like in the weeds on the topic of physics, which I'm not. I'm an idiot. But he had all these, he was a physicist and had all these really fascinating guests on who would talk about all kinds of like physics questions and, what happens to the universe and all these questions they can answer like with math and I don't know, the stuff that smart people do. And there was this one lady he had on where they were talking about how does the universe end? Which is a really interesting question.
Shit. Yeah.
I don't think as people we're good at visualizing time that way. This is one of the reasons that people don't put money in their 401ks either. They can't plan for the future, much less contemplate how all of it ends.
Yeah. The thing that has been going on for 4.5 billion years, and we don't really know exactly how long it's going to go for. How does it end?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different theories. There's, the heat death of the universe. There's the freezing of the universe, and
it's going to be hot or cold, probably one of those two things.
yeah, and I'm not listen to the podcast, but I think this lady was saying that, space is expanding. The nothingness is getting bigger, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And the rate at which it's getting bigger is accelerating. And we don't know why. We don't know why about a lot of things. But I think one of the theories is that eventually all of these molecules and stuff will get spread so far apart, don't quote me on this, that there's just not enough energy and everything will disappear. Like that's the freeze. The heat death, I can't remember what it is. There's all these different theories. But the interesting part, and the part that stuck with me, is she said, this is like a Harvard lady, like a Harvard physicist or something. Like these really highly educated, elite, assholes who are really smart.
Yeah.
And she said something so basic. She goes, I don't know what's going to happen, but all I know is that eventually everything you ever did and every evidence that you ever existed will all be gone. So don't worry about it so much.
That is brilliant.
Yeah,
honestly, it's brilliant.
And that's, I think so. I think, kind of my philosophy now is it's not that serious. It's not that serious. Because everything eventually, all evidence that I ever existed, my stupid house and, my 401k and my will where I give all my shit away to people after I die, it's all going to disappear.
Yeah.
And if I have kids, they'll all be gone. It will all be gone. So who cares? I mean, I don't think you should fly off the handle and like nuke yourself. But
no, I mean, it's a really good point. I think very, very similar to kind of how it's happened for me. And it's one of the kind of the forming topics of the whole podcast. The whole idea of what we're doing here is like, so when your world kind of blows wide open after leaving a religion or something like that, and you're having all these paradigm shifts and you're trying to put all the pieces back together and you start looking for information, right?
yeah,
So you start reading books, you start listening to podcasts, watching documentaries, talking to friends and family, and you're doing all these things. You start taking in all this information and you find things like this, right? You find this podcast about physics and this lady's explaining the end of the universe, and then she says this, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And you're like, that feels very true for me.
Well,
That
I
feels
don't know
very
if-
real for me.
I don't know if her theories are right, but at least there's some math.
But it feels good for you.
Well, and it's something. So like, you want to go get a stupid tattoo? Do it.
Yeah.
It's not that serious.
No.
If you don't like it, get it lasered off.
Yeah.
It's just money. There'll be more money. There's always more money.
Yeah.
But like I used to think like if I'm going to get a tattoo, it has to be meaningful. Why? It doesn't.
Yeah. It'll all be gone eventually.
It doesn't matter.
I'll be dust in the ground.
Yeah. And I think you can take that idea and you can take it to an illogical place.
Totally.
You should still invest in retirement.
Yeah.
And plan and, not go into massive credit card debt. You got to be strategically smart.
Yeah. I think this is where people will bring in the arguments of morality, the arguments for religion.
Yeah.
That it's the framework for morality.
Well, that's nonsense because morality existed before religion.
Yeah.
But
it's if everything's just going to turn to dust someday and nothing ever matters, then it's why be a good person? And I'm because it feels good.
Well,
there's a reason that when you do something nice for somebody, it feels good.
Well, and just like Thomas Paine, right? Common Sense. He wrote Common Sense. I think we need the minimum amount of rules so that you don't bother me and I don't bother you. That's it. So it feels good to be a good person because I want to be left alone to be a good person. Yeah. So don't throw a party in my backyard and I won't throw one in yours. And everybody wins.
I'm gonna.
We need to restart
your video. We're at 22 minutes, so that one actually worked, which is good.
Okay.
Split in 2 files. That's great. Okay. See, now it's working. Is mine still going? Is it red around the edge? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So I think we just need, when I say it's not that serious. For me, what that means is you screw something up at work. Maybe it was your fault. Maybe it wasn't. You feel anxious about it while it's happening. That's good. Anxiety helps you resolve the issue. You fix it.
Yeah.
Be done with it. It's done. It's not that serious. You're a person. You're going to make mistakes. That is guaranteed to happen. So just embrace it and move on. Because I think I have some perfectionist tendencies.
Yeah.
So I'll hold on to stupid mistakes for a really long time. And I've been able to let that go by
this philosophy.
Yeah, it's not that serious.
Yeah.
It's just not that serious.
It's a really great line. It does work really well.
You can say it about anything.
Yeah.
You still got to be intelligent. You got to make strategic choices.
Yeah. And I think it clarifies that there are things that are serious.
Yeah.
And this is not one of them.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a time for things to be serious, and there are things that are serious.
Yeah, and I think worry more about your inputs and less about the outcomes because you can't control those anyways. And they're going to go good or bad, but eventually it's not going to matter. Because you'll be gone.
Yeah. In the very same way, for me, when I started doing the same digging, right, this post-religion digging, trying to find what the fuck do I believe, what's my framework for life, many things I found were very interesting, but one of which is a book by Yuval Noah Harari called *Sapiens*, which you've read,
yes,
and I have also read. I actually started reading it, and then I was talking to you about it one day, and you're like, "Oh, I've read that book." And I was like, "What?"
I know.
But the reason I bring that up, it really opened my mind to, because I was like, okay, so if for me, the Mormon Church told me X, Y, and Z about where I came from,
Adam and Eve,
and who I am. Right?
Eve is a rib.
So
this is an alternate explanation.
Well, it's I was made with magic and fairy dust, and I am the son of a sentient being. I am literally magic.
Mm-hmm. Created in God's image.
Yeah.
God's white, by the way. Yeah.
So that's what I thought. I really believed that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when that all went down out the window, you know, and I had to start finding something else, I was like, okay, so what the fuck am I then? Who am I?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're asking that similar question, anybody listening, check out the book because I feel like it's an option.
Well,
as we say.
And it kind of walks you through, because if I remember, it's been a long time since I read it. I read it in my condo in Phoenix. That's how long it's been. It kind of walks you through like the different sort of chapters of human development, like early humans, and then, you know, like organized societies and farming and hunting.
I think he separates it by revolutions. So
that's what it was.
So there's like, he talks about the first Homo sapiens, and, you know, hanging out in little bands of hunter-gatherers and shit like that.
They only worked like 4 hours a day or something.
Yeah.
I could get on board with that.
And then he talks about the agricultural revolution, industrial revolution, scientific revolution.
And that wheat is the most successful living thing on Earth of all time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's propagated itself to every continent. Incredible.
Shit like that. I mean, I feel like every page of that book was like jaw on the floor. Mm-hmm. There was something in every page of that book that really blew my mind. But one of the things I wanted to bring up that I thought was super fascinating, that really is one of those like podcast moments for you, like with that lady saying that, right? I'm reading this book, or maybe I was listening to it, and he starts explaining that he says Homo sapiens came to be roughly 200,000 years ago in East Africa, which is there. You know, there's the definition between evolution and when you become a new species and all that stuff. It's a little foggy as to when it exactly happened, but we know it was in East Africa about 200,000 years ago that the first Homo sapiens evolved from the previous species, right? He says if you took one of those sapiens and you put them on the autopsy table of a modern doctor or mortician or whoever it is that does the autopsies of dead people, so they weren't alive, right? You weren't able to question them because that wouldn't go super well.
There's a language problem.
There would be some issues there.
Yeah.
But they were just a body.
The
modern doctor would not notice anything in particular.
Yeah, see, that's weird.
It weirds me out because I had been taught, and I had this concept in my head that, you know, these like cavemen version of us or whatever, these like old hunter-gatherers were like all like hairy and gross. And I'm not saying that it wouldn't potentially have more hair on it, but there are humans now that have a bunch of hair on them. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they hadn't invented the razor yet.
Yeah, I'm not a super hairy sapien myself, but that's just some of my...
I'm highly evolved.
My DNA, right? But there would be nothing in particular about that person that'd be any different than than any of us.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, 200,000 years? And it hasn't changed. We haven't changed.
Not that much.
No.
We're probably still evolving.
We haven't. That's the whole thing. We have not evolved.
We haven't?
No. Because if you evolve, you become a new species. So we have adapted. There's this different verbiage here. I'm not
in the weeds on the adaptation versus evolution debate.
I don't have it all figured out either. It's something like that. And he talks about it in the book. But basically that we grow these adaptations, right? But when we haven't yet evolved into a new species. Apparently, I think we're pretty close, but
well, some closer than others.
Yeah. But that I don't know, that just really stuck with me, that I was like, holy shit, like we've been around for a long fucking time.
Well, and it's an alternate explanation from kind of the 6,000-year-old Earth narrative.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's the evolution. It's the argument of evolution, right? Or like it's
I think it's a theory at this point. I think science has pretty much agreed that it's occurring.
Yeah.
And I'm not smart enough to question it, so.
Was it Darwin, right?
Mr. Darwin himself. Yeah. I think the Galapagos Islands that's where he made these observations.
Yeah. I remember I was going to school in Orem, Utah at UVU, and I was in a biology class, and it was in a big auditorium, so we were kind of all like seated up, you know. So there was this kid that was sitting down and to the right of me, so I could see his paper because he was kind of down off to the side. And the professor asked, he was like, all right, I'm going to say a word. I just want you to write down the first thing that comes to your mind. And then we're all like, okay, so everyone gets out a piece of paper or whatever. And he goes, evolution.
What he wrote down, let me guess, not real.
Pretty much. The kid just down to the right of me, in all caps, wrote huge, fake.
Oh, so close. Fake.
And I remember being like, damn, that fast?
Mm.
You're that certain? Damn.
I'm not certain of anything.
Yeah. But I guess, yeah, it's the theory of evolution, right? But if you're interested in that type of thing, the book was very interesting. One of the other things that blew my mind about that was that at one point in the 200,000 years that we've been around, right, there were, I think, some of these species of humans died before we started. So I don't know how many of them. There were many of us that were around at the same time.
Presumably there'd be overlap.
There was overlap. So at some point, I want to say in total, so far actually, we have discovered 9 species of human.
So like, is a Neanderthal a human?
Yes.
Okay.
So they are Homo neanderthales.
And we...
Homo sapien.
Well, sapiens and Neanderthals were breeding.
Correct.
Yeah. So there are people who have more Neanderthal DNA.
Yes. It's like 3%.
Yeah.
Something like that. There's a bunch of theories as to why that is. But there was a theory originally that it was because we were fighting with each other.
That wouldn't make sense.
We hated each other, and we were, like, every once in a while they were interbreeding or whatever. But, like, there's just this nature of Homo sapiens. It's kind of in the title, actually. All other 9 species, all other 8 species that we've discovered, we are one of 9, are named after where we found their remains. So the most recent are called Homo denisovan, and there's a cave, I think it's in Germany or something like that. In this town of Denisova or whatever, I can't remember, something like this. I don't have it all figured out, but they found a knuckle at the bottom of a cave.
How do they know it's not just like a knuckle?
They did DNA, and they're like, oh my God, we don't have this.
Oh, weird.
And
this is why I'm so glad there's really smart people.
Right. They're adjacent to Neanderthals. The Denisovans are. But they are a different species. But there are 9 species of humans. And I went, huh? I'm like, this was just a few years ago that I read this book. And I'm like, I'm 20 whatever fucking years old. And I knew that there were Neanderthals. Like, I heard about them.
Well, you thought there were like chimpanzees and then there were people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm like, 9?
Yeah.
Species? And that's just the ones we found.
And 8 of them clearly were not that good because they died out.
Well, many of them have lived longer than we have.
Oh, they existed longer than 200,000 years.
I think so. I might have that wrong. Either way, I do know that
that's wild.
Some of the precursors to Homo sapiens, so like what we evolved from.
Oh, like Australopithecus.
Australopithecus.
They existed for like millions of years.
Millions of years.
Well, the Earth is so old. The Earth is so old that I saw this somewhere that an entire, like, intelligent, technologically advanced civilization could have developed on the Earth and then disappeared.
And we would have no idea.
We'd have no clue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they say the Earth's like
couple billion years old.
Yeah.
Been inhabitable for
something like that.
A while.
Right?
Yeah, hot minute.
So
Since at least 1993.
Yeah. So that actually segues perfectly into another thing that I wanted to talk about, because you are also a lover of all things space and outer space, like you were talking about with your the podcast that you're listening to from this physics lady.
Yes, I've been binging the Star Trek: The Next Generation.
I remember as a kid, I was probably 8, something like that, and you were going to early morning seminary that the Mormons do.
The worst.
In California.
Yeah.
In other places. They don't do it in Utah because they have the buildings next to the school, but that's not important. So you woke me up at like 5-something in the morning
to make you look in a telescope,
because you had a telescope and you had started and you had planned it out that at a certain time out this window, you had it set up in the window, and I can't remember what planet it was. I want to say it was like Neptune or something.
Jupiter, probably.
I can't remember which.
Jupiter is the biggest.
It was probably Uranus. You're like, look, I found Uranus. I turn around, it's just your ass.
That did not happen. That did not happen.
No, but I remember getting out of bed as a kid and like looking down at the telescope, and I saw a planet.
Yeah,
and
it's
I was
a
like,
place.
Holy shit! And so it's kind of been a thing, a passion of yours or an interest of yours for a long time.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that there are places like living in Liberty Hill's great because we're so far from the city center that it's really dark, especially in my neighborhood because none of the streetlights work because the HOAs, we don't got to get into that. So we'll like sit in the hot tub at night and I'll look up and I can see so many more stars than I could see in Phoenix. And sometimes I'm thinking like, well, not all of the dots. Some of them are, places.
Yeah.
You could go there. I mean, you can't.
Not yet.
Yeah, and there's a question if you could ever. I mean, theory of relativity says you cannot travel faster than the speed of light. And there are some things that they say always travel faster than the speed of light, but they can't prove that they exist. So if you can't travel faster than the speed of light, I mean, there are some places that are just not accessible in your lifetime. You'll never get there.
Oh, most places.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to see every continent before I die, probably.
Nah, I'm not going to Antarctica.
Yeah.
If I can't wear a bathing suit and get a margarita,
Maybe I'll get
I don't want to go.
Maybe I'll get a real itch to travel and I'll go visit before I die. But for me personally, I'm not that interested. But
no, but like I look at the moon and I'm like, that's a place.
Yeah.
It's not just a fixture in our sky. It is a location. It's like going to HEB. You can go to the moon.
Yeah,
it's more complicated and very expensive, but you can go there.
Yeah. So there's a picture that I'll put up so people can see it. That was taken by the Hubble Space Telescope in like 2004.
Oh, the Deep Space Field.
Yeah. So I don't remember what year they took the picture.
The James Webb Telescope just did it again.
Did they?
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit! I need to find that. So basically, I'll give you a brief description. Or do you remember how to describe it?
By all means, you go ahead.
I did some research before we did this so that I would be able to explain it.
You'll know better than me then.
Because it's so interesting to me. It's actually the background on my phone.
Oh, that's cool.
I forgot that it was, but I'll put it up on the screen anyway so you can see it. Basically, how it has been described to me, how I understand it, is that roughly, so that you look at this picture, there's 1,000 specks of light on this picture, right? I think 3 of them are like local stars, I guess, is what they've found. So besides that...
Oh, like local stars to the Milky Way galaxy.
Yes.
Okay.
Besides that, every other dot...
Is a galaxy.
Is a galaxy.
Yeah.
Every speck, every little piece of dust, everything on there that you can see is a galaxy. And to put that into reference, in our... I think that the number is something like 7 billion galaxies, something like that.
Oh, I don't know.
I think it's something like that. So I want to say it's trillion. But basically, I want to look it up so I know the exact...
what number are you trying to get to?
The number I'm trying to get to is how long it takes, how many light years across the Milky Way galaxy is. I think it's 500 million light years.
No, because the next closest galaxy is the Andromeda galaxy, and it's 2.5 million light years away.
The Milky Way galaxy is about...
Watch you prove me wrong right now.
100,000 light years.
Okay, that's what I thought. So to put that in perspective, you are traveling the speed of light to get from one side to the other. It takes you 100,000 years. I think the speed of light is like 3 million miles a second or something. Something insane.
The number that I'm thinking is how many stars. Okay, this was the number I was thinking. So approximately in the Milky Way galaxy, there are 100 billion stars. 100 billion. Which is hard to fathom even just
as a number.
In and of itself.
It's hard to think about as a dollar.
100 billion stars in the Milky Way. So we'll zoom in a little bit and then we'll zoom out from there. But basically, the Milky Way galaxy that we've all heard of, we live in the Milky Way, right? There's 100 billion stars, one of which is our sun.
Yeah.
So the Earth, we see the sun. It comes up every day. If without it, we would all be dead and we would cease to exist. So it's very important. Super important.
Yeah.
Right?
It's 7 minutes away at light speed.
Really?
Yeah. So light speed's 186,000 miles a second, and it takes 7 minutes to get to the sun.
Jesus Christ.
So
So
if the sun explodes, you won't know for 7 minutes. Pretty cool.
But this brings up an interesting point, because if there's so one of the stars is the sun.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't even been outside of our solar system yet.
We have.
We've sent some probes.
Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are both in interstellar space, I think.
That's what I'm saying. We've just recently...
And they're doing like 30 or 40,000 miles an hour. And to get to the next star, it's going to take Voyager 1. It's not even on a trajectory to go there, but it would take it like 40,000 years or something obscene.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But 100 billion stars in just our galaxy. And the picture that we put up on the screen is every single speck of light on that picture is a galaxy in and of itself. And the Milky Way is apparently a rather small galaxy. So there are bigger galaxies in the Milky Way that have more stars.
Well, and this gets into the whole, like, what's that theory of whether or not there's other intelligent life?
I feel like there's a ton of theories on that.
It's a math thing. It's like a probability thing. Let me Google it really quick because I'll get it wrong. I've probably gotten so many things wrong on this podcast. I look like an idiot already, so I don't know what I'm worried about. Alien probability.
If you don't believe us, look it up yourself.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. You don't have to believe me.
And if I got it wrong, leave a bad review of Ben's podcast. The Drake equation.
Oh, okay. I've heard about it.
Where he's saying, like, there's so many stars in our galaxy. So many of them have, planets in the habitable zone. This is the likelihood that life develops. And there's some not insignificant number of stars that probably have planets that have developed life.
And they've done a math equation for this.
Yeah, but it's a probability thing.
Okay.
But the universe is huge. It's getting bigger.
That's what you were talking about earlier. It's like
it's expanding.
So the one of the other things about that picture the Hubble Space Telescope took, which I think is incredible, is like you can look at that and you can be like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of specks of light on there. I can't even count how many are on there.
You can't even see them all.
You can't even see them all. And every single one of those is a galaxy that has, 100 billion stars in it. Mm-hmm. And just one of those is the one where our Earth hangs out, where we live.
Yep.
Right? The way it was described to me is if you took a dime and you held a dime at arm's length, the eyeball, who's on the dime?
Ooh, I don't.
Doesn't matter. Whoever's on the dime,
I don't know.
his eyeball
and
at
president.
arm's length is the amount of the night sky that was exposed to take that picture.
I believe that.
That's about how much of the sky.
Franklin Roosevelt.
There it is. Roosevelt's eyeball
on the dime
at arm's length on the dime is the amount of the sky that they took that picture is taken of.
Yeah, it's infinite.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm not supposed to drink coffee on Earth. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. No, I think it's really cool. Would I fly in a rocket, like to go to the moon? Probably not. I don't even like flying in airplanes all that much, but sometimes I'm sad that like I don't live in a time where more space exploration is possible. Because it's still just so difficult. It's so crazy expensive to go anywhere and see anything. There could be life on moons around Saturn or Jupiter, like Titan. Titan has an ocean on it. There's like 6 miles of ice over it, but there's water underneath it. What's in the water? We don't know. How do we find out? Well, we'd have to fly something there that could drill 6 miles through ice and then swim around in the water. This sounds really expensive.
Yeah. Almost feasible. That feels more feasible than a lot of other things.
I don't think we can drill 6 miles through ice on Earth. Pretty sure.
That's fair.
So doing it remote controlled, and, when you send signals that far to like, I mean, I don't know how far it would be there, but like when they move the rover on Mars, they input all of the little movements they wanted to do, and it takes like half an hour for them to get there.
Yeah.
Because they have to like fly through the air all the way to Mars.
That's like the idea of
This podcast would take like 100 years to record if you were on Mars.
the idea of light speed, right? Is that at the speed of light, it will take, or light years, right? So there's...
And that's assuming you don't slow down. You know what I mean? You'd have to start slowing down at some point to like arrive at a place.
So you don't just
fly past it. Yeah.
At an alarming
Jeremy
rate.
Clarkson speed.
But that even if there was an intelligent species that was trying to be seen by us or to see us, and they were looking at us in the same way that we look, right? Because we can only think in terms of things that we understand.
No,
right?
if you were on a planet in the Andromeda Galaxy, which is 2.5 million light years from here, and you had a crazy telescope, and you could look from there directly into this room right now, none of this would be here because they would be getting light from 2.5 million years ago. So whatever was in North Austin 2.5 million years ago, that's what they'd be seeing. Because the light...
Dinosaurs? No, not yet. No, they're like 40 or 60 million years ago.
Yeah, so whatever... The light that left this Earth 2.5 million years ago is just arriving there.
That is insane.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Well, and that's part of the reason they think that maybe we haven't found any other intelligent life is we've only really been detectable on Earth for like 100 years since the invention of the radio because we started sending shit out into space. So
hoping that somebody would give a fuck.
Well, yeah, it's just like, like regular radio broadcasts. So somebody's going to pick up like a baseball game from 1920. That's what's like out there now.
Yeah. That would be the first thing they get.
Well, that's just that's like some of the early shit, like weird speeches from World War I and stuff. But we've only been detectable for 100 years, and 100 years on the galactic scale is like milliseconds.
Well, and it's the same thing vice versa, right? So the version of Andromeda that we know exists is 2.5 million years old.
Well, even just exoplanets that are orbiting stars in our galaxy. That's the stuff that we've sent out hasn't even got there yet.
No.
And it won't.
No.
In our lifetime. Or many lifetimes. And if we had the ability to send, let's say we knew, 1,000 light years from here, which is not that far on the galactic scale, we see a sun. There's a planet. We know it has life on it. We want to send them a message. It's going to take 1,000 years to get there.
If it's going at the speed of light.
Yeah. By the time they receive it, we could be extinct. That's how far it is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The way things are going, I'm like, people extinct in 1,000 years. I could see it.
I could see it.
Yeah, I could see it.
One of the other ones I heard recently was it was one of those British physicists. I can't remember what his name was, but somebody had asked him. They were like, "Is time travel possible?" I think was it Brian Cox? Does that sound
I think the math says maybe.
And he says, into the past, no, but into the future, yes. And he explains why. He says he and one of his coworkers recently came up with this equation.
These math nerds.
I know. Where basically, if you're traveling at 99.9998 times the speed of light,
because you can't, per the theory of relativity, you cannot travel the speed of light. You have to have zero mass to travel the speed of light, I think.
Something like that. Yeah. But basically, if you're traveling as near as makes no difference the speed of light in terms of my thought process, and
relative to you,
right?
Yeah, because it's all about where you're looking for.
This is where it gets fucky, right? He says, so if you and a homie got on this ship and you went to Andromeda,
yeah,
and then came back, he said that,
which would take you like 3 million years, but yeah.
No. He said for you, it would take you be gone for 100 years.
Yeah.
And when you got back, so you get on, you go, you come back 100 years later, because I can't remember the way because it's different when you're the one moving at the speed of light. It's different for you than it because you're moving.
Yeah.
But the people on Earth watching you go to Andromeda and back.
Mm-hmm. Because it's relative to the observer.
Yes.
Yeah, see, this is where math starts to lose me.
Right. So you would go to Andromeda and back in 100 years, roughly. And when you got back, I want to say it was like 5 million years would have gone by.
Yeah, because it's 2.5 million years away.
There it is. So they would be watching you go to Andromeda and back, and it would take you 5 million years to make, and for you it would have been 100 years. So
I'll have to take your word for it because the math doesn't work. But yes, it's based on where you're looking from, and that's where, like, what's that movie?
Interstellar.
Yeah, where there's like the crazy age things happening.
Yeah, when they get closer to gravitational whatever, the black holes and all that shit.
Which they actually proved that black holes look like that recently.
Well,
somebody took a picture of one.
Turns out there are 2 black holes that we have seen, that we've taken pictures of. Mm-hmm. One of them is at the center of our galaxy.
Big old boy.
Yeah. And what we have established is that apparently, he says, because there are so many galaxies out there, as we just discovered earlier when we were talking about it, he says, I'm sure that there are some galaxies that don't have black holes in the middle, but it is safe to say that most galaxies have a black hole at the center of them.
Well, that's what creates the gravity that holds the galaxy together.
Right.
Right?
Something like that.
Because it's super dense or heavy, or I don't know. We're getting into areas where our knowledge is sketchy at best.
Yes, this brings me to the last thing I wanted to talk about, which is something that you have more knowledge on than space, which is very similar to black holes in that talking about massive amounts of energy.
Yeah.
Atom bombs.
Okay. Okay.
Boom.
I don't know if I have lots of knowledge on this.
No, but you are a...
I did just watch a documentary about...
Yeah, so you're one of your passions is...
being a nerd.
U.S. history.
Yes.
And World War II.
Specifically.
World War II specifically, and specifically Nazi Germany.
Yeah, they're crazy.
Hitler. You're very, very into that sort of thing. And
they're a bunch of very bad dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think is so fascinating from all that, which we've talked about a little bit, is, and some people might be familiar.
Did it stop again?
Yeah. We'll see how much we lost. Some people might be familiar with a little bit of the story because of that movie that just came out.
Great movie.
Oppenheimer. Yeah. Chris Nolan does it again.
He kills it.
Yeah. But after that movie, I just started like researching atom bombs because I was like,
because they're insane.
This is insane.
Yeah. Then hydrogen bombs and
yeah. And that apparently after
we can't cure world hunger, but we could blow up the whole earth.
So there was the whole race to create the atom bombs, and which they talk about in the movie.
Everybody was worried about Germany getting one. That's how it started.
Yeah.
So we wanted to beat the Germans to it, but the Germans, like Albert Einstein he was a German.
Yeah.
He ended up here because they were not into the Jews, as everybody knows. So a lot of the really top bright scientists in Germany had fled Germany for one reason or another. And the Germans weren't really willing to allocate the necessary amount of resources to develop an atomic bomb. And that's actually how you win wars. Just look at who spent the most money. That's who won the war. We spent the most money. Yeah. We spent a crazy amount of money on the atomic bomb specifically. Like orders of magnitudes more than anybody else. That's how it got done.
And we got there.
Yeah. And we did a few things to prevent the Germans from being able to get the stuff they needed to do any nuclear projects. They were controlling... this is tangential knowledge. I think it was in Norway. You need heavy water to do this kind of nuclear stuff. And they were controlling like a plant that could produce heavy water in Norway or Sweden, and we blew all that up. I mean, we pretty much bombed all of Europe into rubble to win that war. So
of all of the things inside of your passion about World War II, Hitler, Nazi Germany, all that stuff, what do you feel like is the potentially like aligns the most with the goal of the podcast?
I don't know.
The goal being, like we talked about earlier, like expose people to new ideas and concepts they may not have come across otherwise.
Yeah, well, I think my interest in World War II, and I guess Germany at that time in particular, is that, like, when I first started looking into it, I was like, how did they... I mean, they did atrocious things to people. Millions and millions of people died because of the nonsense that the Germans started in Europe. How did they get everybody on board with this? You know? Because there's a whole, a lot of people I think people who were alive at the time tried to obfuscate their responsibility, but, votes matter. The Nazis got themselves elected and took over, and everybody let that happen. Why? How? So that's kind of the weeds I've gotten into lately. I've read a bunch of books about it, and you start to see kind of alarming patterns. Some of the kind of xenophobia and...
What is that?
Being... what's a simple way to describe it? Not liking outsiders.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
feels familiar.
Yeah. Well, I'll plug these books for anybody who's interested.
So yeah, that
Richard J. Evans. So he wrote 3 books, about Nazi Germany, and it was before they came to power, while they were in power, and during the war and their fall. They're all like 25 hours long each. Totally fascinating. You really got to care about the details.
And you listened to all 3.
I'm almost done with the last one.
Jesus.
It's taken me like a couple of years because they're
long as shit
and dense. So you got to be in the mood. Great for doing yard work if you're into that. But yeah, just like, how did he pull this off on people? And some of it was circumstance, a lot of kind of serendipity where a whole bunch of stuff had gone wrong in the past. People were unhappy with the Treaty of Versailles after World War I, and the reparations that Germany had to pay. It destroyed their economy. So people were suffering, and they were looking for an out. And he claimed to be able to provide one. And I think in a lot of ways he kind of did.
Interesting.
I mean, he promised people jobs, and there were more jobs. And he built a war industry that was full employment, basically. Not to justify the atrociousness, but just how did this happen?
I think that applies really well to kind of what I'm interested in and what kind of the goal of what we're trying to talk about here on this specific podcast, and kind of like the mission, because how did he get so many people to be on board with what he was doing?
Yeah, I
and the kind of like pulling the wool over, and then also like the amount of people that had to be okay with committing such terrible atrocities, right? And we've seen that in history many times before.
Yeah.
With other groups.
Arguably not on this scale.
But like as far as Sapiens history goes, I mean, it's pretty much the pinnacle of people doing large-scale terrible things to other people.
Oh, I mean, it's shaped the world as we know it. I mean, there's an entire generation, the baby boomers, who exist and are the way they are because of the Second World War. Because everybody came home and had a bunch of kids. And those people are running the world now. Yeah, I think, I think a lot of people were disinterested. People, it's easy to, lump together everyone, but a lot of people are just trying to live their lives.
Yeah, me included.
Day to day.
Yeah.
They're not really worried about who the president is.
Yeah.
They don't really care.
I would say I fall into that type of category.
So I think that's probably true for a lot of people. Being a Nazi became such a huge part of German culture. You really couldn't escape it. For example, all boys had to be in the Nazi youth. It's like they forbid the Boy Scouts. No more Boy Scouts. You had to do it.
Okay.
So it was a part of everybody's life. The government was really involved in your day-to-day. So even if you didn't like it, you were forced to be a part of it. Even the Mormon church in Germany put a sign on the door that said no Jews.
Really?
Yeah. Uh-huh. And there was actually a young kid who was a Mormon. This is a story that gets touted all the time, who did not like this. And him and his friends were they were listening to the BBC radio with a radio that they had, which was a crime. And they were basically writing like anti-Nazi pamphlets and giving them out. He was 14 or 15. Heinrich something was his name, I think. Heydrich.
Damn.
They executed him. Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
15-year-old kid.
Boom.
Yeah. And he was not happy that the bishop put a no Jews sign on the church. Bishop was a Nazi. So, but everybody was. It's like how you got ahead.
Yeah.
And they did terrible shit to everybody, their own people included.
Well, if everybody's doing it.
Well, yeah. Well, that's a question, right? It kind of gets into the whole herd mentality thing where it's not wrong if everybody's getting away with it. And a lot of the people who put into practice this really terrible stuff, one of the common defenses at the Nuremberg trials when we put all these assholes on trial after the war was, I was just following orders. I'm German. I'm a soldier. I do what I'm told. I didn't want to do it. That's not how the army works. That didn't work.
Yeah. But
that was the excuse.
So what was... I mean, because if you follow the poor leadership up and you end at Hitler, right?
He was a nut.
What was his deal?
He's a drug addict. Seriously, by the end, they were pumping him so full of shit.
I've seen a video of him at the Olympics.
Just vibing.
Ripping balls.
Yeah.
Like methed out.
Yeah, he was crazy. I think he was really like a crazy person.
I mean,
he was a great speaker. I think that's what got him popular.
So he could speak well. He came from the military background, right?
Yeah, he
fought in World War I.
Yeah, he was an Austrian who was trying to get German citizenship for a really long time, and he fought for Germany during First World War. He was in a gas attack and ended up in the hospital because he was suffering from all the side effects of that. Came back, never really had a job, kind of a bum. He wanted to be a painter. The art school wouldn't take him. Kind of sold paintings on the side. They're like paintings by Adolf Hitler. It's weird. They're not good.
So how does he go from that to running the country?
Well, so he started working for, this is where I get a little fuzzy on the details. He started working for some government who wanted to surveil a small political party. Remember, in other countries, there's not two political parties. There's a whole bunch of political parties, and they have to build coalition governments. And there was a new political party that they wanted him to go see what they were doing. Not like a spy, but just like keep tabs.
Go check them out.
Yeah, he joined them. It was the Nazis.
So he didn't start the Nazis.
No, a different guy did.
Interesting.
Another nut.
Yeah.
It's just a socialist workers movement. It's not like those exist today.
Yeah, I guess my very uneducated point of view on all this, I have what I remember from, school growing up. And
I think the overarching theme that I've learned from these books about them is that they kind of say why they're doing things and what they're doing, and it's all bullshit. It's a pretext. There was very, very little truth in any of it. I think the real goal was consolidating power and being in charge. And Hitler took it to an extreme place and blamed the Jews for everybody's woes and decided that he was going to do Europe the favor of getting rid of them. And a lot of them believed that even after the war. He's a nut, and his buddies were nuts. And the guys who ran his government were crazy.
And it's like, how does
The head of the Air Force was addicted to morphine for like the whole war. He's crazy.
Sounds like they were all doing drugs.
Yeah, how could you not? You're going to be such a piece of shit. But
so how does an entire country, well, I guess the whole country didn't really get on board because a lot of them were Jews and were trying to get the fuck out.
Well, by the start of the war, most of the Jews had been deported or killed in Germany. By the end of the war, there was only a handful of Jews still living in Berlin. And most of them still lived in Berlin because they were married to non-Jews. There were all of these rules about who was like exempted. And if you were married to a non-Jew, that would usually kind of get you a pass. But even, I can't remember his name, by the end of the war, him and his wife went into hiding. He was a Jew, she wasn't, because he knew they were coming. Yeah, crazy.
I just, how does somebody with that terrible of an idea become in charge, become to power?
Well, he tried to take it by force first. He tried to do a putsch, and it didn't work. He went to jail, wrote a really terrible book, and then decided...
I've heard about the Mein Kampf, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then decided that he was going to take the government over by votes. He did. Surprisingly.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Well, and even the government at the time was kind of sympathetic to him. There's a lot of kind of little details about German culture at the time that all these guys who got arrested, I mean, he committed treason. And he went to jail for 2 years.
And then still got elected.
Yeah. Because the judges let him off easy because everybody was sympathetic.
Mm.
So there was already a bias towards them. So I think it was really just right place, right time. Germany was at a point in its history. And some of the stuff he was touting is kind of long-standing sort of... It was a long-standing part of Germany's history. A history of, for example, wanting to unite all of the German-speaking areas of Europe under one government. And there was, Franco-Prussian War, I think, was kind of one of the early parts of that. And Hitler wanted to annex Austria and bring it kind of under the wing of Germany. So some of these ideas were not so foreign. They're kind of long-standing parts of German history. And when you don't get that, you're like, why would everybody be okay with this? Well, they've been trying to do it for 70 years.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people just bought into the story because their lives were so bad. I mean, Germany had hyperinflation after World War I, where it was like $1 billion to buy like a loaf of bread.
And it sounds like, from the way you're describing it to me, is that he
seized on this kind of failure in society and touted himself as a savior, basically.
And put the responsibility for all of people's problems on the Jews.
Yep. Yeah, which is complete nonsense. But he did it. And it was somebody to blame.
And people needed somebody to blame.
I guess. Better than themselves. Because they started the First World War and lost that one too. Yikes.
That is fucking crazy. It's like an entire area that I'm not that well versed in.
Oh, it's so fascinating. It's crazy to me. I mean, a guy 80 years ago took over like half of Europe. It's nuts.
Yeah. Like I'm much more interested in, older, like ancient human history.
Oh, see,
but if you just go back 80 years and it's like,
yeah, well, the acceleration of technology. I mean, we kind of tangented off the atomic bomb thing, but 1910 or whatever, 1910, 1920, we're fighting World War I, and it's dudes in trenches with like bolt action rifles
and horses.
Yeah, and the first
world.
tanks and airplanes made out of wood and canvas.
Yeah.
And then by 1945, we are dropping an atomic bomb on Hiroshima out of a flying fortress. We're talking about 35 years or less.
Yeah. That's the power of the war machine right there, right?
Yeah.
And the money.
Mm-hmm.
Money.
Yeah. Yeah. That bomb was probably, I don't know how much, I bet you that bomb at Hiroshima was more power than like all of the armament of World War One. And they dropped it on a single city.
Well, I'm gonna pull up the some facts about the atomic bombs, and we'll leave our listeners with this. Let's see here if I can like a comparison, because this is where it gets really interesting. So, for everyone that went and saw Oppenheimer, what was the bomb that they were making in the Oppenheimer movie?
Oh, the name of it, I don't remember.
I think it's
the one that they detonated, like the test one? Or are you talking about like Little Boy and Fat Boy or whatever they are?
Little Boy and Fat Man.
Fat Man.
So those were both dropped in 1945.
A couple days apart.
Yeah, and Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So Little Boy, 15 kilotons.
Okay.
I think that's how they say that, right? Kilotons? Something like that. And that's I think it's of TNT. It's like one stick of TNT or whatever in weight. So
yeah, it's
TNT,
15 kilotons of
TNT.
TNT.
Is about how much the explosion was. So those were dropped on cities.
Hold on. How many pounds, I'm asking ChatGPT, is 15 kilotons? So 15 kilotons is 33 million pounds of TNT. Just for context.
33 million pounds.
Of TNT. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. And that was the small one.
Yeah.
That's the smallest one. We dropped that on a city full of people, which is fucking insane to me.
Well, the rationale was that it was overall less casualties because we didn't think the Japanese would surrender. So we thought we were going to have to fight all the way up the whole island. So that's how they justified destroying an entire city of people in a morning. Yeah.
Yeah, my level 6 atheist point of view on life does not bode well with dropping a bomb on a city full of people.
No, yeah,
for any reason.
Avoid at all costs.
That is crazy to me. Anyways, then a few days later, another city. You said days, right? Was it days later? Or
I think it was a handful of days.
21 kilotons was the next one.
Okay.
Fat Man.
So that's like over 40 million pounds.
I think that they were talking about in the movie, like the difference between those two things was there were different types of the material that they were using, the actual atom that they were like colliding or whatever.
Different.
One of them was uranium and the other one was a different the chemical of some kind.
And then what's this? The Tsar bomb was
so. Let's see, 1961.
So 20 years later.
Yes, ish. 15 years later, the Soviets, the USSR, detonated a test bomb in the middle of the ocean somewhere.
In northern Russia, like up by the Arctic Circle.
That they called Tsar Bomba. It was 50,000 kilotons.
How many? What? 50? So is that 50 megatons?
I don't know. It says 50,000 kilotons.
Okay, hold on. 50,000 kilotons.
The little boy was 15. 1 5. This is 50000.
So hold on. 50,000 kilotons is 110 billion pounds. So it's 33 million pounds of TNT and then 110 billion pounds of TNT.
That is fucking crazy. There's a video of Tsar Bomba being like detonating.
Yeah.
I will play it for people watching. It's let me see. The last interesting facts that go with it. The blast radius. This is insane to me. When the giant bomb finally detonated about 13,000 feet over its target. So it was an air detonation.
Yeah.
The blast was so powerful that it destroyed everything within a nearly 22-mile radius.
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah. It shattered windows like hundreds of miles away.
Generated a mushroom cloud that towered nearly 200,000 feet, or 60 kilometers.
What's the edge of the atmosphere? 100 kilometers?
Something like that. So 22 miles, it destroyed everything.
100 kilometers is where the atmosphere becomes too thin. So it was almost to outer space. It was more than halfway to outer space.
So the blast radius, 22 miles. Think about that in like wherever you're living, wherever you are right now, whatever city you're in listening to this. Like your commute to work is probably 20 miles.
Mine's
Maybe
like 80 feet.
Yours is like 10 feet. Mine is like 25 miles. So from here, from where we are in Leander to Austin, that's radius. So you got to times that by 2, right?
I don't know how.
So
I don't do math.
Well, it's Austin to Leander, basically to Kyle.
Like, all gone.
Austin and the entire surrounding area.
So
vaporized instantly. Okay, to get this, the flash from Sarbomba ignited buildings 50 miles away.
That's on fire.
Ignited them. Let's see. The radiation fallout. This is somebody saying, what if you dropped Sarbomba on New York?
Mm-hmm.
Radiation from fallout would kill tens to hundreds of thousands more.
Oh, yeah.
Who might have survived on the fringes of the damage range. So 50 miles away, it was starting buildings on fire.
Yeah. Like if they dropped that bomb in Austin, you would know in like Waco. You'd be very aware that this had occurred.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I saw something that
let's see, Killeen to Austin. Wow. So they dropped the bomb in Austin. Buildings in Killeen are catching fire, basically.
And it says everything within 36 miles of the impact was vaporized, which we talked about. But severe damage extended 150 miles radius. 150 miles radius.
That's insane.
How far are we right now from Dallas?
160 something miles.
Yeah, 160. We're 160 miles from Dallas.
I mean, you could totally cripple the state of Texas with like 3 bombs.
Yeah, I mean,
Houston,
just
Dallas,
the one.
Austin.
150 miles radius, bro.
Well, yeah.
So if you drop that thing right in the middle of...
You drop it on Waco.
You drop it on Waco, you're taking out Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, and you're going to be...
College Station actually is a perfect target.
That's true. Because then you get Houston, Austin, and Dallas. With one bomb. Yeah. The crazy thing about that is that they weren't expecting it to be that big.
No, they toned it down.
And they toned it down.
He could have made it twice as big.
And now the bombs that we have, because nuclear weapons are still, alive and well. We still have them, right? I don't know if people have made an agreement on this, but basically that happened.
And everybody was like, okay.
I think maybe you were telling me this, but the blast...
They measured it twice.
Yeah. Like we have sensors to pick up like fucking earthquakes and shit here in the United States. And the blast from Sarbomba, when it got tested in 1960s, went by twice.
Yeah.
It's like it passed us and then went around the earth and passed us again.
Yeah.
That is fucking insane to me. So I don't know if they made some agreement or something, but I've heard that the bombs now are much smaller.
Yeah.
As far as like the blast radius.
Well, the ones that we tell everybody about.
But the crazy thing is that
You don't think if we started losing a war,
all of a sudden,
yeah,
the biggest
the
bomb.
100 megaton bomb comes out?
Yeah, that is crazy. That.
I could see it happening.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Which terrifies me about Russia. As they're currently, well, they're not really losing a war, but it's not going well.
But I don't know, it's just crazy that we have that capability, you know?
Wait till we have satellites with nukes on them. Just shoot them right down.
Well, on that bombshell. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No.
Touch on any other thoughts you wanted to share?
No, I think
with our lovely 50 people.
I think we've wandered through a variety of topics. I'm honored to be your second guest. It's a great time. I'd come back around. I need a beverage station.
I'm sure we'll do this again.
That sounds great.
We'll have another, I'm sure. Well, thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you for watching and or listening. And
on that terrible disappointment.
It's time to end. Thank you very much for watching. Good night.
Экипаж одевает защитные очки. Приближается к точке взрыва. Высота 4000 метров. Осталось 3 секунды. 2, 1, 0. Взрыв сопровождался световой вспышкой необычной силы. В этот момент самолет-носитель находился в 40 и последующие свечения, несмотря на сплошную облачность, были видны в радиусе до... Пылевой столб, поднимающийся с земли, быстро увеличился в объеме. Через несколько секунд после взрыва диаметр пылевого столба составлял около 10 километров. Увеличиваясь в размерах, облако медленно поднималось вверх. В своем конечном развитии оно достигло высоты 60-65 километров.